Well, it is now the second week of March. And unless you've been hiding under a rock, you know that now there is a war in Iran going on. It's a serious conflict. Some may ask, is this going to have any impact on the local housing market? Quite honestly, it's too early to tell. But we're going to look at two input costs that could start to affect how buyers feel about the cost of housing. Let's take a look. All right, well, let's start with oil. So, once the war broke out, obviously the Strait of Hormuz, which is where a lot of oil comes from the Middle East, has to get through that area. It's right in between Saudi Arabia and Iran. Well, when you constrict supply, what happens is the demand overwhelms it. And now you have oil prices kind of rocketing up to about $100 a barrel. What that means is you're going to feel it at the gas pump. So I've seen some national stories where gasoline might be going up 50 cents or even up to 75 cents this week per gallon. And of course, that affects you and me. We're driving around, we feel it in our cars. So that's probably the number one place consumers are going to feel some of the impact of the war is going to be at the gas pump. And of course, the longer it lasts, these costs then work their way into the goods and services that feed the housing market, especially supplies, contractors, just the cost of building a house. Again, if the war does not last very long, this might dissipate, go away, become a blip. The longer it lasts, however, these become serious costs. The other one, and see if I can pull it up, would be the bond market. So the bond market is typically how we fund everything, including wars. And so as we watch the 10-year Treasury, we're sitting about 4.16%. If that doesn't mean anything to you, we were probably at or below 4% maybe a month ago. And now we're starting to see if I can get this down to 3 months, give you a cleaner view of it. But you'll see that it had to go back up over the last couple of weeks here on the right-hand side. So it's volatile. There's a lot that impacts the bond market, but the number one thing that it impacts is mortgage rates. So we had just started to see mortgage rates just tick below 6% a few weeks ago. Then the war breaks out. We've seen them jump back up maybe 20 basis points. So we're sitting about 6.14%. I can show that to you in a chart down here. So the average 30-year fixed rate mortgage started the year around 6.2% up here, had a nice blip early in the year, but then they were coming down. This is right before the war. We hit 5.9. So we were at 5.99%. And then since then, it's gone up a little bit. Again, too early to tell how much these are going to have an impact. But of course, the longer kind of higher expenses work their way back into the equation, what happens is it reduces buyer sentiment and demand. So do we have any buyer demand so far this year? The good news is we're starting to see some signs that the answer is yes. So if I come over here to the Austin Metro chart, the last full month of data that we have is February. Yeah, we're still tilting a buyer's market. We are still lots of supply over the 10-year average. But what I want to show you is these two charts down here. Supply and demand. So if we look at the supply side, that dotted line going across is the 10-year average, and we are way above that, of course. And we are even a little bit above where we were last year. So the average is about 6,800 homes this times a year that would be on the market over the last 10 years. We're sitting around 11,000. So we're almost double the number of homes on the market. However, the last 2 years or so, we've had really anemic demand. But if you look at this year, the two orange lines are significantly up over last year, and February was actually up over the 10-year average. So all of a sudden, we started to see demand come back into play. It looks maybe more impressive than it is, but last year we had maybe 2,300 sales in February. This year, over 2,700 sales, but that 400 makes a difference. It starts to impact how much supply has to linger on the market. If we look at that in a different way, I'll show that to you here in a chart in a minute. How is supply shaping up for March? One more thing that will show it to you is in data. If we look at this February chart here, this is inventory. And again, there's our 5.3 months of supply. But if we look at number of new listings, that's actually down just a tiny hair over last year. But new contracts are up 14%. So that is not insignificant. The question is now with the headlines, with concerns, is that going to make some buyers hit the brake pedal? We're going to have to wait to find out. It's too early to tell. This is where we're looking at inventory in real time. So the green are active listings, the blue are closed sales. And again, it's not going to be super impressive yet, but what you're seeing is this isn't immediately bell curving straight up like it did the last couple years. It's kind of bouncing sideways. I do expect by the end of March, we're going to see that spring bell curve of listings start to really take off. However, what I want to see are these blue bars get a little taller, and the blue bars is closed sales. So we had a good February. I still don't think all the February data on this chart has been recorded. So I expect maybe a few more sales will get in there. But ultimately, I think we're going to see more in March because those were February buyers, probably already wrote their contracts, and now they're just working on closing those. What's going to show up, let's call it war data, isn't going to be really until your April buyers. And so we want to see, are the buyers in March just as excited? Is there enough demand pushing those housing contracts up in April and May as well? Anyways, if you're a seller right now, I wouldn't yet be overly concerned with the impacts of the war. I think it's too soon to know if that's going to have any local impact on the housing market. Pricing in lower interest rates is really what's going to drive the market. And so far, we have had pricing soften for 4 years, and now we have interest rates finally getting into the low sixes. I think that's what's motivating enough buyers to come off the sidelines and kind of improve the number of contracts that we saw from last year. If you're a buyer right now, again, we're talking some incremental differences from what we saw a month ago. So you still have fantastic supply to look through. You've got lower rates that we've seen so far. And more importantly, I think we are in the time of the housing cycle where you're going to get more and more options coming to market over the next 2 and 3 months. So if you're looking to buy, sell, invest, or finance in Austin, would love the opportunity to talk with you. And of course, we want you to watch these videos each and every week. You can go to our YouTube channel at Ryan Kelly Group, click that subscribe button, and follow us along there. I am working to put out multiple videos a week and add even more value to that channel for you. Anyways, if you have any questions about that, let us know. We've got bit of a gloomy start to the week, but I expect we're going to have nice, bright sunshine by the end of the week. And of course, my kids have spring break next week, so they are excited about that. Hope you guys have a great week and talk to you next Monday. Thanks.